皆様こんばんは。今夜はチベット問題を取り上げます。チベットは日本から遠い国のように思えます。でも実はそうではないんです。中国の脅威に向き合うという意味で、日本とチベットには共有するものがたくさんあります。さてここでチベットの歴史を振り返ってみましょう。チベットは約1000年間も独立した国でした。仏教を基盤として大いに栄えました。時代によっては中国の皇帝に仏教を教えるなど、中国と少なくとも同等か、あるいはそれ以上上の地位を占めていました。ところが1949年、昭和24年に毛沢東らが中国共産党政権を樹立してから、チベットの運命が暗転します。中国共産党はチベットを目の敵にいたしまして、建国から一番先にチベットに侵略をかけました。さまざまな経緯をたどってダライ・ラマ法皇様は1959年にインドに亡命をいたしました。インド政府はチベットの人々を手厚く保護し、北部のダラムサラというところに広大な土地を確保して与えました。今そこにチベット亡命政権が位置しています。その時から約60年間、中国は中国国内に残ったチベットの人々を弾圧し続けています。そしてダラムサラに逃れた法皇様は、約10万人のチベット民族の人々と共にチベット仏教を守りながら、チベットの文化を守りながら、チベット人らしい生活をしてチベット人の価値を伝えようと努力しています。ダライ・ラマ法皇様は中国政府に言い続けています。チベットは独立する気持ちはない。中国の政府の下で外交も安全保障も中国に任せてよいのだ。ただしチベット人は仏教を守り、言語を守り、文化を守りたい。チベット人として暮らし続けたい。高度の自治を与えてくれればそれでいい。このようにおっしゃるのですが、中国は弾圧をやめません。ダライ・ラマ法皇様を分離独立主義者であり、犯罪者であると非難しています。そして昨年10月、習近平主席は中国共産党大会で言いました。中国は宗教を認める。ただし宗教は中国化しなければならない。社会主義化しなければならない。それがどんな宗教なのか私には分かりません。ダライ・ラマ法皇様は現在82歳です。当然チベットの未来を考えることでしょう。そして2011年に新しい指導者を選びました。政治部門のすべての責任をこの主席大臣に渡しました。ロブサン・センゲ首相です。チベットはこの若き指導者の下で宗教と政治を切り離して今存在しています。若い世代の下でチベットの未来はどうなっていくのか、今夜はロブサン・センゲ主席大臣と共にお話をしてまいります。So it's good to see you again. Welcome to our studio, President Rob-san Senge and Mrs. Ke-san Yandon. I understand that two of you make a TV debut for the first time together.
Yes, that's true. This is our first time, yes.
Yes.
Joint appearance.
Well, you met in India to be, you know, both of you, how did you meet with each other?
Thank you very much for inviting us to the studio, and you've been a very kind and a strong advocate of Tibet cause and the Tibetan people, and also a good friend of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So we really appreciate it. Yes, as you know, my wife and daughter. They don't like to join me when I travel to other countries. They always like to come to Japan. So,
Thank you.
At least I know that when they come to Japan, both of them are quite happy. Yes, we met in India, a place called Darjeeling. So both
Darjeeling.
Yes, it's known for tea.
That's right.
Yes.
Tea, yes.
And yeah, we were studying in college. In fact, she was 1 year senior to me. So I was in class 12 or senior in high school. She was first year in college.
I see.
That's where we met, yes,
I
initially.
see.
Yeah.
Now you are married, and then you studied at Harvard, and you are the senior fellow there, and now you returned to Tibet, your own country, and as the president of the Tibetan asylum government, you have been visiting all over the world. You have been to Japan 4 times and have a great mission to spread the Tibetan cause. How do you feel the Japanese parliamentary members' reception of you and Tibetan issues?
I feel encouraged because first time when I came in April of 2012, you were kind enough to host my visit. And at that time, Abe-sen, now Honorable Prime Minister Shinzo Abe Sensei, was also part of that group which hosted me. And then I came back in 2016 after 4 years. So then I realized that 4 years is a long time to come back to one country. And I decided to come back every year, partly because both my wife and daughter loves Japan. And so since 2016, 17, 18, now in 2016 we didn't have the parliamentary support group. In 2017 when I came, we had the largest all-party parliamentary support group in the whole world. Japan has the largest. So I'm very encouraged that today I get to meet with the members of parliament. And after the election, the all-party Tibet parliamentary support group has increased from 87 members to 90 and increasing. So this is very encouraging because the rest of the world, sometimes you see that because of the influence of the Chinese government, there is decrease in members of parliament. They self-censor themselves on issues like Tibet. But here in Japan, in the parliamentary group, there is an increase, so which is very encouraging and inspiring. So this sends a right message to 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet, that Japan care for the people of Tibet, and Japanese people support the cause of Tibet. So this is the right message. This is a very powerful message, 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet, and also to the Chinese government, because we follow nonviolence, we follow democracy, human rights, justice, and dialogue is the way we want to solve the issue. So these are the values and principles on which Japan is built, on which Japanese people also share. So I think this is a good synergy that I can see. So I'm very encouraged.
Yeah, I am proud to say that our members of the parliament formed the largest group of support for the Tibet among the Congress of every country. So I'm very proud of them. Now, you talked about the Chinese influence or Chinese intervention. I'm sure you would like to explain to the Japanese audience or the audience who will watch this program of all over the world how you are somehow oppressed by the Chinese government, because China is now the very strong state, and they have the responsibility for the well-being of the world. Are they behaving in accordance with this kind of world expectation or not?
Historically, Tibet was an independent country, and there is no any uncertainty about it. Even the Chinese historians have acknowledged and recognized Tibet as an independent country. In 821-23, the treaty between Tibet and China clearly said Tibetans will be happy in the great land of Tibet, Chinese will be happy in the great land of China, signed by a representative of the Chinese emperor and the Tibetan king. So, but then throughout its independence and just before the occupation of Tibet also, Tibet has its own tax system. Tibet has its own currency. Tibet has its own judiciary. Not even a single case of Tibet or Tibetan people has gone to Chinese court. And we had our own government, we had our own leaders. So when Tibet was occupied in 1959, it started with the road. A Chinese Communist Party at that time said this road will bring peace and prosperity to the Tibetan people. And Tibetans were paid silver coins to build that road. Later we found that they deliberately built silver coin factories near Tibet to supply as much silver coins as possible, because they had already calculated that once you occupy the Tibet, all the silver coins are going to come back. So after we helped build them the road, then they brought guns, they brought trucks, tanks, and that's how we lost our country.
President, your story reminds me of the one road, one belt strategy of today's China. They are building the railways or highways, and then making the infrastructure and investing lots of money to the poor country, developing countries, and then eventually they would prevail and occupy. This is the similar structure, isn't it?
The blueprint that they used in Tibet is quite similar to what they're using in the rest of the world. Today. Build road, build railway, and then bring all the machines to extract all the minerals from Tibet. Take all the hydropower from Tibet. Tibet has 10 largest rivers of the whole of Asia. And also co-opt elite, ruling elite, make them consultants or buy them off. So when you see this, I just went to South Africa, and when you hear the stories in the continent of Africa, it's very similar. Co-optation of elite, building roads, extracting minerals, cutting down trees is very, very similar.
I see.
And then now, through One Belt, One Road, in other countries like Australia or Europe, similar physical occupation of Tibet might not happen with military force, but the occupation in economy and trade, occupation or influence in the political sphere, and occupation and invasion in the academic sphere, it's all reality. In Australia, you see that, right? So this is happening. So occupation in some form or the other in all other countries are happening. And it all started with us, with the road. So all we say is, be careful, be alert. You must engage with China, do business with China, but you must be aware as to what happened to Tibet. Now, it started with peace and prosperity.
Yes.
But now, as per Freedom House, as for Freedom House Index, Tibet is the least free region in the whole world after Syria.
I see. Syrian case is well known in the whole world, but I think Tibetan case is not so well known. Why?
It's pretty clear because there's another statement by Reporters Without Borders, which says that for journalists, it's easier to go to North Korea than to go to Tibet.
I see.
So it's more difficult for journalists to go.
North Korea is one of the most closed country, and then it's even harder to go to Tibet than to North Korea.
Yes. And when you see CNN reporters, some international journalists go to North Korea reporting, sometimes live from North Korea, from Pyongyang.
That's right, yes.
But in Tibet, they are denied.
I see.
Because they are denied, 151 Tibetans have committed self-immolation. They have burned themselves. so many deforestation, so many extraction of minerals are taking place, so many protests are happening by nomads, by farmers, by teachers, by students, by monks, nuns, from all age, from all regions. But because journalists cannot go, they don't know what's happening inside Tibet. Hence, outside world don't know as to what is the reality in Tibet.
Yeah, actually, I understand lots of operation is going on inside China, Tibet, and also the operation is placed on your government in Dharamsala. What sort of things the Chinese have done to the Tibetan people in the past, and what sort of things are they doing now?
If 3 or 4, 10 Tibetans organize a peaceful protest, they will be immediately arrested. They'll be put in prison for a long time and tortured immensely. I have met many former political prisoners who participated in peaceful protest. All they did was they went to the street and say, we want to have our own language in schools. We want to practice our own religion. We want to have a picture of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And to have a copy of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you could be in trouble. Now, I met former UN Human Rights Commissioner Mary Robinson, who was the former Prime Minister of Ireland. And she said, when she went to Tibet, she took copies of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and gave copies to Tibetan people and see how Chinese react. And I said, that's a very courageous thing to do. But after she left, all those booklets were, seized from the Tibetans, and some of them could be in prison.
I see.
So simply to have a picture of His Holiness Dalai Lama, you will be in trouble. Even to have this is my national flag. And to have this, you will be in trouble. You go to prison.
I see.
So this kind of denial of freedom of speech. So in the rest of the world, if you have 2 people or 200 people or 2,000 people or even 20,000 people protesting in the street, it's allowed. And then it's tolerated, but not in Tibet.
Actually, that is the operation going on today. But in the past, Tibetan temples and the Tibetan, how do you say, priests have been tortured, killed, and also expelled, right?
Yes. After the occupation of Tibet, of around 6,000 monasteries or nunneries, 98% of monasteries and nunneries were destroyed, demolished,
My goodness.
reduced to ashes. My father was a monk in Lithang Monastery, and his monastery was first one to be bombed and reduced to ashes in 1956.
I see.
Then he had to flee, go to Lhasa, then had to join militia, because as a monk, all you had was your monastery. Once it's destroyed, you have nothing. So similarly, 98% of monasteries and nunneries destroyed. 99.999% of monks and nuns were disrobed, sent to prison, sent to labor camp, many sent to villages not to practice Buddhism at all. So many of them joined militia to fight for their rights, to defend their monasteries.
Yes.
So this, and then even as per the Chinese military document, 87,000 Tibetans were killed from March of 1959 to September of 1959, just in 6 months.
I see.
This is an archival record from Chinese sources. Generally, we estimate that up to million Tibetans have died because of the occupation. Now, many died fighting, many died of starvation, many died in prison, and many were killed. So approximately 1 million loss of life.
even though Tibetans were so badly, bashed by the PLA, the Chinese military, or the Chinese Communist Party, your people are very resilient. They are trying to once more rebuild the temple and then try not to give up the Tibetan Buddhism. How that sort of efforts are going on?
This is, on the one hand, Tibet is a sad story, a tragic story. On the other hand, it's a very inspiring story. Now, after 98% of monasteries and nunneries were destroyed,
Yes.
you have only 2% chance of survival. But His Holiness Dalai Lama and exiled Tibetans rebuilt all the major monasteries in exile in India, Nepal, and Bhutan. Now we have 265 monasteries and nunneries. All the big ones are rebuilt.
I see.
And we have around 40,000 monks and nuns. And then, in all the Himalayan belt, Nepal, Bhutan, Ladakh, Arunachal, which borders Tibet and India, again Buddhism has revived.
I see.
Mainly because of His Holiness Dalai Lama's efforts. And around the world, including in Japan, Buddhist centers have come, where Tibetan monks travel all over and they teach Buddhism. In America, Europe, some countries, Buddhism has become the third largest religion in some countries. And because of these collective efforts, now back in Tibet, so many major monasteries are also rebuilt
You mean
by
back
Tibetans
in
themselves.
Tibet in China?
In China.
Back in Tibet in China?
In China.
I see.
Tibetans in their private sphere, in their social sphere, voluntarily they're rebuilding monasteries and nunneries. And the assertion of Buddhism in Tibet is also back.
I see.
But the Chinese government policy is to repress and destroy. So that's why the Larungar monastery with 12,000 monks and nuns was destroyed and demolished last year.
That is the largest Tibetan temple in
Temple.
in Chinese Tibet.
Yes.
Yes.
So in Tibet, of the 12,000 monks and nuns, it was demolished and reduced to 5,000.
What do you mean by demolish? Were they just expelled, or were they just killed, or what is it, demolish?
Oh, physically they brought trucks, they brought crane,
I see.
and ransacked all the buildings,
I see.
ransacked all the houses where Tibetan monks and nuns, including some Chinese nuns
I see.
and monks were there. Now from 12,000, 7,000 were expelled,
I see.
never to come back. Only 5,000 remaining. 3 nuns committed suicide. Because again, you have, all you had was a monastery. If you lose that, you lose everything. And now, just Human Rights Watch has come out with a report. They have divided this Larungar into 2, academic section and monastic section. Now they will have more than 100 Communist Party officials who will monitor and manage the monastery.
I see.
So who goes in, who goes out, what to study, what not to study, everything is controlled. Now as we speak, Yachingar is the largest nunnery
Yes.
with 6,000 nuns. It's being demolished again.
I see.
Now anywhere, it will be reduced to anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 nuns. So what you see is that Tibetans individually, privately and socially, they're rebuilding monasteries. But the government again is destroying and monitoring and managing. So this is a constant struggle. But, from 2% chance, we have rebuilt monasteries in exile all over the world, Himalayan belt, inside Tibet. Now, interestingly, China has also become the largest Buddhist country in the world. So we have 300 to 400 million Chinese who are Buddhist.
Chairman Xi Jinping said last year in the 19th Chinese Communist Party Congress that the religion would be allowed, but on 2 conditions. One, it has to be Chinese, and the second, it has to become a socialist type of religion. I do not understand what it means, but it means the oppression, demolition, which you just talked about. what is the future of the Tibetan Buddhism in China, it is very hard to imagine that it would be accepted as it is. The oppression would keep going on.
I think, when they say religion will be allowed, but it should be a socialist religion, means it should be subservient to the Communist Party. So Communist Party dictates what is allowed, what is not allowed. So also religion, but a Chinese religion means, the origin of religion should be Chinese. But, as far as Buddhism is concerned, it came from India. It will always be Buddhism from India. You can't have Chinese, origin Buddhism per se. So this is a constant, I think, battle. Hence, each time there is a growth in religious, affairs, there will be control and there will be demolition. So this is a constant challenge. But, sensibly, logically, if you allow people to practice religion, it is good for the people.
Yes.
And it's good for Tibetan society, and also good for China and Chinese leaders. Because religion is a matter of heart and mind.
Yes.
It's a matter of faith. You can't buy, you can't force. If you allow them, it gives them peace of mind. It helps them prepare for next life, So this is how religion is practiced. But if you start controlling it, managing it, destroying it, all it creates is resentment and revolt.
Do you think the Chinese government would understand the nature of the religion and eventually would accept the reality, or do you think it would be very hard for them to understand? And also, their oppression upon you goes on wherever you go all over the world. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, ideologically it might be difficult because communism or Marxism is material based, linear progression. But spirituality, religion is a spiritual base, values. So there's a contradiction between the two. And the Communist Party as a one party wants to have control over everything. And religion is difficult to control. So there is inherent contradiction, and then the force will be used. Similarly, they want to control the voice of the Tibetan people. Wherever His Holiness Dalai Lama goes, Chinese government protest. His Holiness Dalai Lama was denied visa to go to South Africa 3 times. At one time, he wanted to attend the 80th birthday of his friend, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is a Nobel Peace Laureate, who was one of the top leaders of South Africa. But South Africa denied. So I took it as a challenge, and I visited South Africa recently. The fact that I managed to get in made the Chinese embassy furious. They complained to the South African government. And then I was supposed to speak at the law school. They complained to the university. The law school came under tremendous pressure. So, but then law school decided to go ahead with the talk.
Good for them.
Yes. But the Chinese embassy brought 100 Chinese and South Africans to protest. And when the protest did not work, they got in the auditorium. They went on stage with big banners.
You mean on stage, where you should be delivering a speech?
Yes, and the students and the faculty members were there in the hall, but they went on stage and started shouting slogans and then disrupted the proceeding. And then the law school had already arranged alternative room. So I think 2/3 or 50% of students came because it's difficult to arrange in that house. They came to listen to my talk, and I gave the talk anyways. And then we had question answers, and I really applaud the law school, for standing for academic freedom and for their courage. So, and after that, after finishing my talk, we went out, and at the gate, there were like 30 Chinese or so waiting, shouting at us, saying, shame on you, one China. Can you imagine? They occupied our country, they're denying human rights to our people, and there they are calling me, shame on you, So all I did was when I walked out, they had a lot of cameras watching. All the cell phones were out taking pictures.
Yeah.
They wanted to see me running away, so I gave them victory sign and I smiled. And I walked out like that. And actually, just before I reached the car, there was one person who was clicking away.
Yes.
I stopped for 10 seconds, I smiled and gave victory sign. So I'm pretty sure they could not use those photographs because they didn't see me hiding and running. They saw me smiling with victory sign because I stand for justice, what I fight for freedom, basic human values, So I have nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, I'm very proud
Yes.
what I'm doing. So the courage also comes from there because what I'm doing is right. What they're doing is wrong. And then I was in Switzerland before South Africa.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to enter the parliament at 10:30 and meet some members of parliament. But then I was told to come at 10:45 because Chinese delegation was there from 9:30 pressuring members of parliament not to meet with me.
I
And the
see.
meeting was going on till 10:45.
I see.
So I could enter only at 10:45.
I see.
And then I was in Washington, D.C., meeting some senators and congressmen. At the same time, Chinese delegation was meeting some senators. I was in Canada, and then I was meeting a member of parliament. And after the meeting, he said, tomorrow we are having lunch, right? I said, no, tomorrow we are not meeting. No, I'm meeting tomorrow. Then he checked, he says, oh, I'm having lunch tomorrow with mayor of Lhasa.
I
The
see.
Chinese embassy had brought some Tibetan delegation from Tibet
I see.
to challenge my visit.
I see.
So it happens all the time.
I see.
In Australia, same thing. A week after I left, Chinese delegation came and scolded me and complained about me. So it's an ongoing experience for me.
Actually, I understand that many countries and many leaders are realizing now how sneaky measures Chinese would take in order to exclude the Tibetan people or His Holiness Dalai Lama or the president like you. But I think people are now realizing Chinese way is very, very, how do you say, unacceptable. And the Australian government, for example, had passed a law not to accept the foreign fund. They have this China in mind, and then they want to exclude the Chinese influence. Do you feel that there is some understanding growing about Tibetan cause in many countries where you visit?
Now, some of the countries I've been going, 2-3 times. The first time when I go, not much awareness, not much interest. Second time it grows. Third time, there's a new audience, a new interest, including in Australia. So Australia as a nation decided to lean towards China. But then recently they saw the Chinese influence is not just in economy and trade, not just in business, but also in politics. Some of the politicians, their campaign fund is paid, and former ministers are Chinese government consultant or companies. And also in academia, that one professor mentioned Taiwan, and the Chinese students complained, and the university fired the professor. Similarly, they mentioned Tiananmen, Tibet.
Yes.
4 or 5 professors in Australia were fired because they raised this issue. Now, in an academic setting, with academic freedom, academic objectivity, all kinds of complex issues are supposed to be raised and debated and learned. And Australia, they had to fire this professor. So the ruling party introduced a bill, passed a bill, restraining foreign influence, clearly with China in mind, and Chinese government objected. So that shows there's a bias remorse going on in Australia. So they said lean towards China. Suddenly they realized Chinese influence is so intrusive, so exploitative, that they're taking a stand. I think this is what's going on. So even in South Africa, Chinese investment is very strong.
Very, very strong.
But Democratic Alliance, the opposition party, Inkatha Freedom Party, I was their guest. So there's a realization that what is happening, So the same template that they use in Tibet, build roads, railway, extract minerals, raw materials, and sell goods back in high price, and they bring Chinese people to do all the construction. This is realized in different countries.
When we look back the various Chinese projects that they have done for other countries, then we would learn the lesson. Like, Tibetan people were taken away their country by allowing this road to be built. Now, so many countries are doing the same thing, and then they might be following the path where Tibetan people had to walk. Therefore, we should be learning this, experience from you, and in that sense, maybe it is easier for people or countries to learn the Chinese way of so-called invasion. But at the same time, they have been doing so cleverly, so widely. How is your, may I call it a fight, or how is your fight against the Chinese, oppression going on in Dharamsala? What is the situation in Dharamsala?
Yes, Chinese, does things very systematically and sophisticatedly. But eventually, truth will come out. Botswana, they had a lot of investment. The Chinese engineers built their hydropower, so many other projects. Soon they realized the quality of hydropower, the dams, are not up to the standard. So the Botswanan government expelled those companies, Chinese companies, from doing a lot of construction because it's of poor quality. So similarly, that backlash is also happening. Now, as far as Tibetan administration in Dharamsala is concerned, we are very proud that even though we are in exile, Tibetans are in 40 countries, but ours is a democratic system. My position is elected by Tibetans in 40 countries. And His Holiness Dalai Lama envisioned this democracy. Even though you're a refugee in exile, it's very difficult to organize. But it's a democratic function. So we have a parliament of our own. We have a judiciary, which try all the civil cases. And like any other government, we have Auditor General, which is very, very strict, very frugal.
I see.
And our system, perhaps, is the least corrupt administration in the whole world. Primarily because this is a labor of love. I got educated in America, and I worked at Harvard University for 7 years. Altogether, I spent 16 years.
Yes.
Now, my salary is only $450 a month. So
I
from my
see.
salary at Harvard, I took a huge cut. And all my staff members are very dedicated and sincere. Their salary is less than mine. So we are not working for money. This is a labor of love. So we always say, if you want to work for money, go somewhere else. If you want to provide service, this is the place to come. So once people are not working for money, corruption is gone. The only thing you have to do is increase efficiency. And Tibetan staff members are very, very sincere. So it's democratic. And then, we are also proud to say that our education system is, as His Holiness Dalai Lama says, is a policy of bird of two wings.
Bird of two wings.
Bird of two wings.
Two wings.
Two wings, yes. Tradition, modernity,
I see.
Tibetan, English.
I see.
So from kindergarten to primary school, we teach everything in Tibetan. Science, maths, social studies, everything in Tibetan. So our children is well versed in their mother tongue. They learn better. Then when they go to middle school and high school, we teach in English. Now, I'm of second generation, third generation. My daughter is third generation. Her Tibetan at her age is better than mine when I was at her age.
Really?
Because during our time,
Yes.
we were taught Tibetan as a language, but maths, science, and social studies were all taught in English.
I see.
Now, because she is learning everything in Tibetan, her Tibetan is better.
I see.
So we are very proud that the third and fourth generation of Tibetans, in place of regression in Tibetan language and culture. There is progression
I see.
in Tibetan language and culture and Tibetan history. So in history and political science that we teach, before we used to teach, we were taught world history, politics of different world. Now we teach our own history.
That's very
We teach
good.
our own political system. So the younger third generation, whose identity should be, weaker, is stronger now.
I see.
So we have adopted, the school system. It's also Montessori, a Buddhist values-based school system,
I see.
where competition is discouraged, where community, collectiveness is encouraged.
I see.
But at the same time, innovation is encouraged. So, the democracy system that we have is very unique among exiles. And the education system that we have is very unique. And we have our own Tibetan Medicare system. For the poorest and the poor and the average families, we cover Medicare facilities for the Tibetan community. So, in every aspect, we are trying to function like any other government. Now we are coming out with our own banking system.
I see.
So we are already giving loans to Tibetan people. So everything that we do, it functions like any other government.
I see. Mrs. Kesang Yandon, he just told us about the life in Dharamsala. How do you enjoy that?
Well, it's actually been a bit of a change leaving Boston.
Yes.
Well, leaving behind a life of convenience. But then Dharamsala also has a lot of positive elements. For instance, she's been learning Tibetan. She's being fully immersed into her own Tibetan culture, which is a matter of great pride for us as parents, and much more for her as a child, as a Tibetan growing up. So we feel kind of more fulfilled in doing that.
Actually, the story you told me is really warm my heart, because His Holiness Dalai Lama always says it is very important for the Tibetan to live like a Tibetan. And then that is basically the only thing he wants from China. Tibetan Buddhism, language, culture, value system, how to live, etc. I think your people are doing very, very well in Dharamsala. But at the same time, you also have a very, very serious mission to continue on the life of the Tibetan, or the nation as a Tibetan nation. How are you going to go about it? It is a very difficult task.
And that's why it's called Tibetan freedom struggle, The word struggle is very apt. Every day is a struggle, for me and for the Tibetan people. And every week is a struggle. Every trip is a struggle, So, wherever I go, for example, I come to Japan, I travel a lot. Physically also, yes, even though I have a title of a president of administration, but I fly economy class.
I see.
Because frugality is the norm. Saving money is the norm. Now, as with this title, I could fly business class, but then I'll be spending 2 or 3 times more for the expenses of the air ticket. That means I'm thinking I'll be denying 2 or 3 more trips for my colleagues, for my staff members. I'm thinking I deny 20 or 30 scholarships to Tibetan students. So that's why we take less salary. We travel economy class. So, and then when I travel, and then obviously Chinese embassy is very busy. So this is a serious mission. And the Chinese government in China is very powerful. To challenge that, what you need is really a value-based, principle-based organization and a system where we should commit ourselves with the value that we have. That's where you can go far. Otherwise, any given day, when you travel, when you face this crisis, when you hear bad news from Tibet, it's, as a human being, it saddens you. And when you try to tell a story, like I try to go to South Africa, there's so much pressure to cancel, my event and participation like that. And His Holiness Dalai Lama tries to travel. There's so much pressure on governments not to meet. Having said that, because it's value Buddhist principle-based approach, I have a sense of calmness and contentment
I see.
that I'm doing the right thing. The sense of resilience and the determination.
Yes.
Each time I see a Chinese embassy or Chinese officials very busy, I'm very proud. Hey, I'm doing something that keeps them busy. You know, that means truth
Yes.
is prevailing,
Yes.
and in their desperation, they're acting like that. You know, so we matter, and then that's that much we can do for Tibet inside Tibet. You know. They're giving up their lives. They're burning themselves. We discourage self-immolation, but they're doing it. They're going to prison. You know, they're getting tortured. Least we could do is accept the inconvenience, embrace the challenges, and keep moving forward. Because this is a value-based system. You know, the Buddhist notion of impermanence is very helpful. One who's born has to die. While you live, you do something. And equanimity is very helpful because, you know, as great scholar Shantideva said, if you can Shantideva, he said, if you can solve a problem, why worry about it? If you cannot solve a problem, what is the point of worrying about it?
I see.
So, on a daily basis, whenever there's a problem, I do the best I can to solve. You know, that's all you can do, and keep marching forward. If you cannot solve it, there's no point worrying about it. You know, so you keep marching forward. So, you know, with equanimity, the Buddhist notion equanimity. When it's some good news come, I don't get too excited. When bad news come, I don't get too depressed. I just keep moving. You know, so these are the principles and values that are taught for centuries by Buddha and all the great scholars, including His Holiness Dalai Lama. So you go with that resilience and determination. Hence, after 60 years, after destroying 98% of monasteries and nunneries, you know, after destroying 99.9% of monks and nuns, Buddhism is thriving.
That's
inside
right.
Tibet, everywhere. So it is a competition between Mao Zedong and His Holiness Dalai Lama. Mao Zedong destroyed Buddhism in Tibet, thought he won. 60 years later, China has become the largest Buddhist country in the world. So you can clearly see, you know, His Holiness Dalai Lama has prevailed. And also, you know, people always see China as this big monolithic one country. But for us, communism is just 100 years old.
Yeah.
Buddhism is 2,500 years old.
Exactly.
There is no competition. You know, we have prevailed again, again. This time also we will prevail. That's the mountain spirit.
Mountain spirit.
Yeah, that's the spirit of Tibetan resilience.
I see. Hearing, listening to your husband talk, I feel very, how do you say, encouraged. You must be encouraged every day by him, or you are encouraging him every day.
Yes, I'm actually very amazed at his selflessness, which I find very admirable.
That's very good. Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, she allows me to be almost like an absentee father, you know, traveling around the world and doing work for Tibet and taking care of home. It's a much, you know, a contribution from her side as well. But then, you know, if you study world history, if you study any conflict areas, when I went to South Africa, they said the same thing. Oh, you're, you know, dealing with China. It's almost like illusion that you will ever get your, you know, basic freedom. And I said, how can you say that? I went to Robben Island to see the prison cell of Nelson Mandela.
I see.
Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison,
That's
8 years in solitary confinement. If you read the writings of late 80s till 1990, obituaries were written about Nelson Mandela, saying he's finished, he's gone. He cannot restore democracy and equality in South Africa. You know, people wrote him off, but he walked free. He got Nobel Peace Prize, he restored democracy and freedom in South Africa. And, you know, if you look at, I remember meeting Ramos Horta of East Timor. Ramos Horta. He's also a Nobel Peace Laureate.
I see.
I remember talking to him and he said, you know, I said, what should what should we do? Tibetans are the situation. No, we were in same situation. We kept marching, we kept fighting non-violently, and we won. He said one day he got a call to visit a state in Midwest. So he changed 2 or 3 flights and got there. Someone came to pick him at the airport and drove him to a cafeteria. And there were like 5 or 6 people there just to listen to him.
I see.
But then there were only 5 or 6 people. He gave a talk.
He went all the way.
All the
Only
way.
5 or 6 people were
yes,
waiting. Yes.
And he gave a talk and he kept going. There were 5 people. Later increased 50 people.
He didn't give up.
He didn't give up. Then it increased 500. Then increased to 5,000. And East Timor got its independence.
I see.
Aung San Suu Kyi was in solitary confinement, right, under house arrest.
That's right. Long time.
Yes. And just 5 years ago, had we said, oh, Aung San Suu Kyi would be free, she will travel to Oslo, get her Nobel Peace Prize, there will be election and her party will win, she will be the most powerful woman in Burma, no one would have believed. You know, it all became reality. So these are the experience, whole history, you know, which gives us not just hope in, you know, in cloud, but these real events happened.
And so this is the reality.
This is the reality.
That
and
you
we
can
want,
trust in.
Yes.
I see.
And we want to be another chapter.
That's right, yes.
Say, non-violence prevailed, justice prevailed, Tibet prevailed. That's why I gave those Chinese this victory and peace sign. You see, this will come sooner or later.
And then I have to ask you about His Holiness Dalai Lama. He's always very, very, how do you say, forward-looking, and he never gives up his hope, and he's always positive. He's always happy, and then I really, you know, admire him. But how is he doing nowadays?
There's a book by His Holiness Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu together. And I think that book has a very powerful stories.
2 Nobel Prize winners, yes.
And you know, both come from a tragic background. You know, one lost country, one lost freedom. They fought hard, and both are very happy people. Now, His Holiness Dalai Lama, every day he gets up at 2:30 or 3 a.m. Then he meditates, right? And his meditation is the most difficult one. It's called Tonglen.
Tonglen.
Give and take. So you give compassion and love to your enemy. You take hatred from your enemy. Every day he visualizes giving compassion and love to enemy, take hatred from enemy. Sometimes it's difficult to give love and compassion to your family members also, no? But he does on a daily basis to an enemy.
Yes, yes.
And second thing, he does analytical meditation and visualizes death.
I see.
Every day. So what happens is that once you overcome death, once you overcome enemy, you are the happiest person in the world. So you know, he is a very disciplined and a serious scholar. And through meditation also, there's, you know, single-pointed meditation, all kinds of meditation, mindfulness meditation. But His Holiness does the most difficult one, analytical meditation. Not just you close your eyes, but you analyze why sufferings happen in this life, why misery happen in this life, why happiness is the only way to go, why compassion and love is the only way to go, why kindness is the only way to go. So through analysis, you convince yourself rationally and logically. So you come to conclusion. You overcome your enemy, you overcome your death, you overcome your suffering and anxiety and miseries, and you are a happy person. So you know, he is sincerely and seriously happy man.
I see. I was a bit worried before I hear your story that His Holiness Dalai Lama is maybe becoming weak. Then what would happen to the Tibetan people in the future? But I am quite sure he meditates and he thinks about the future of Tibetans, and he asked you to take all the political responsibilities. I'm sure he would find a way to find his how to continue the Tibetan Buddhism way, right?
Very much. In 2011, he decided to separate the church and the state. So he handed over the political and administrative matters to my position, to my office. Now he is the most revered spiritual leader, not just among 6 million Tibetans, but in Mongolia, even Russia, and all over East Asian countries and around the world. But also because we rebuilt all the major monasteries in exile. We have trained thousands and thousands of monks, learned scholars. They are carrying the message of Buddhism and His Holiness around the world.
I see.
Inside Tibet also, and all over the world. So his message and his wisdom and his philosophy is very much alive and strong. So, in place of one person, of course, he's the most charismatic, right? But there are like thousands of monks and nuns who are seriously studying. And Tibetan monastic tradition is very strict. You have to study for 22 years to get Geshe degree.
22 years to get?
To get Geshe degree, the master's degree.
A master's degree.
So it's tough. And then, through debate. Now in our monasteries, we teach them science. We teach them Chinese and, other languages. We teach them introduce other religion as well. So that the Tibetan monks are well versed in understanding all other religion.
I see.
And science included. So they can debate with scientists. They can debate with other scholars. Because His Holiness' definition of religion is very inclusive. Respecting diversity and inclusivity is very progressive. So that's the philosophy he wants to share with the rest of the world.
So I don't have to worry about it. I trust in the future of the Tibetan Buddhism.
Oh, Tibetan Buddhism will be there for a long time to come.
Yes.
It's 2,500 some years old. So
100 years or less than that, the history of Chinese Communist Party, they can't win.
Philosophically, really, there is no competition.
No competition.
No competition.
That's
Buddhism
good.
will win. And also, Tibet is a mountainous area, so we are mountain people. The mountain spirit is also very strong. It took us, only 3,000 years. We went from 3,000 meters on the Tibetan plateau to 4,000 meters. We conquered the Himalayan mountains, only 3,000 years. It took us also 3,000 years to conquer it.
Yes.
For Chinese to conquer, physically conquer and establish themselves there permanently, it will take at least 1,000 years.
I see. Okay. Well, at last, I would like to ask your opinion about how we Japanese can, share in the true sense, share the value and cooperate with you or even help you. What do you expect from us Japanese?
The Tibetan people are, fighting a good cause and in a good way, non-violently, peacefully, through dialogue. And these are the values shared by people of Japan. And then it's very important to be aware as to what's going on. Because if you want to understand China, you must know Tibet experience. If you don't know the Tibetan story, you will never understand China. So I know you have written a book.
Yes, many books on China.
Many books on China,
Yes.
and also on Tibet.
On Tibet
and
too.
I urge really people to read the book, And
This book?
Yes, and definitely through this book, you get to understand what is Tibet and what's happening there, and how can we find a peaceful solution to the Tibet issue. And I know you're being very selfless to contribute 2/3 of the royalty to Office of Tibet and 1/3 to your think tank.
Yes.
So you are not making anything out of it. This is your really dedication and contribution. So I really want to appreciate your selfless contribution for the Tibetan cause. You've been a truly great friend of Tibetan people and His Holiness Dalai Lama. And we would like to see that what happened to Tibet doesn't happen in Japan. I mean, when I visited all this country, they always say the same thing. No, we are democratic. It's not going to happen to us. But then after 2 or 3 trips, they say, my goodness, the Chinese influence is so strong. It's penetrated, infiltrated. What do you do about it? And I said, I told you 3 or 4, 7 years ago that this is what happened to Tibet and this might happen to you. Now there is awareness going on, even in South Africa and other places. So that awareness has to be created. Hence, reading this book, and hopefully, today, I urge the members of parliament that we are very proud. Japan has the largest all-party parliamentary support group in the whole world.
Yes.
And then after the election, now more members are joining. So not only largest, it's increasing. So which is very good and very much appreciated. And this is the right message. But I hope, like the US Congress, like the European Parliament, I hope the Japanese Parliament will also introduce a bill on preservation of Tibetan culture and supporting middle way approach, which is essentially saying there should be a dialogue between the envoys of the Dalai Lama and representative of the Chinese government to solve the issue of Tibet peacefully. And this is supported by American government. And I hope this will come. And another bill is introduced in US Congress called Bill of Reciprocity.
Bill of Reciprocity, 相互条約, yes.
So, so which essentially is, a lot of Chinese academics and journalists and officials from Tibet are allowed to come to China, allowed to come to America freely. The Bill of Reciprocity essentially says, similarly, American journalists, American diplomats, American academics should have access to Tibet. So if 10 journalists come from China, from Tibetan area to America, 10 journalists should be allowed to go to Tibet. This is just an, logical, egalitarian exchange of program. So this Bill of Reciprocity does not say Chinese should not come. They say come as many as you want, but the similar number should be allowed to go to Tibet as well.
Well, I'm quite sure that Japanese members of the parliament will try very hard. We also try very hard to support the Tibetan cause. By doing so, I'm sure we will be able to do a good thing for people of every other country and people of China too. So we shall be sharing the same value system from now on too, and we will keep marching forward. Thank you very much, and please send our best regards to His Holiness Dalai Lama when you return to Dharamsala.
Definitely, and His Holiness Dalai Lama will appreciate your personal support and the support of your think tank and the people of Japan. And also because we are saying thank you, I just want to share, as per Tibetan tradition and values, His Holiness Dalai Lama always says, you should make new friends, but never forget your old friends. Keep old friends and make new friends. Based on which, we also have to say thank you to your friends from time to time. So as we say thank you to you and people who are watching this program, from March 2018 to March 2019 is also our thank you year.
I see.
Because we have been exiled for 60 years. And even though it's a struggle, we are still standing on our feet. And because we have support from around the world, including people like you and all the members of parliament. So hence, Tibetans in Japan will be observing Thank You event, Thank You Japan event here in Japan.
Well, this TV, internet distributed, this TV is called Gendon TV. There are so many people watching this program, and I'm sure this Gendon TV would help you a lot by delivering the message to so many thousands and thousands of people, and you will make new friends through this Gendon TV. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。Thank you so much.
Thank you.
さあ、皆さんいかがでしたでしょうか。本当に私は今日のお話を聞いてよかったと思いました。 お話を伺う前はちょっとチベットの未来心配だなと思うこともありました。ダライラマ法皇様のお体のこともちょっと心配でした。けれどもしっかりとチベット仏教を受け止める人たち、それを引き継ぐ人たちが育っているということ、そしてどんな時にも自分たちの価値観は正しいんだと信じて進んでいらっしゃるロブサンセンゲ首相をはじめ多くの方たちがいらっしゃるということ、確信を持つことができて本当に嬉しかったです。私たちはこれからもチベットの人たちの思いをチベットの人たちが実現できるような世の中、それを作るのにお手伝いしたい。それはチベットの人たちのためだけではなく、日本人の私たちのためでもあり、世界の民族のためなんだ。改めてそう確信いたしました。本当に嬉しかったです。さあ、ここで本をご紹介します。もちろん一冊目はさっきロブサンセンゲ首相もおっしゃってくださったこのチベット自由への闘いです。どうぞこの本をお読みになって間接的にですけれどもチベットを助けてあげてください。それは日本の私たちの未来を明るくすることでもあります。この後の花田和義さんの番組のお客様をご紹介いたしましょう。今週はこの方です。そして来週の私の番組のゲストもご紹介いたしましょう。ぜひこちらの方のお話を聞いてください。では皆様、来週金曜日の夜9時この時間までどうぞごきげんよう。